Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of A Millennials Point of View, where today we're going to be covering something a little bit different. Now, I know that a lot of people have made prediction lists or lists of what they want to see on the N64 Mini, but I'm going to do mine a little bit differently. So for mine, I'm just going to be pulling from games that I personally own for the Nintendo 64, and this isn't a list of games that I think would be most likely to be on the N64 Mini out of my personal collection. It is, for me, basically think of the scenario of where I'm making my own N64 Mini, where I'm only pulling from games that I actually have, and this is what I would want put on it. Not necessarily great games, but this is what I want put on it. And also, I'm not going to worry about licensing, just because this is for fun. I'm not going to try and get any kind of realistic with it, that type of stuff. So with that being said, guys, let's get started. Alright guys, first up we have Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie. Some of the best 3D platformers of the generation. Really encapsulates what the 3D platformer meant to the N64. And they just made improvements. They took what was good about Mario 64 and they added improvements to it. For Banjo Kazooie, they made it so you can collect the jiggies without having to leave a level, which may seem like a small thing, but it really adds up. It really saves time. It doesn't disrupt game flow. And then with Banjo Tooie, you don't have to collect everything. You don't have to collect every note for it to count. You can leave the level not collecting all 100 notes, and you can come back and not have to recollect anything, which is something, again, seems small, but that was huge, and I think really influenced a lot of other collectathons that led into the PS2 and GameCube era. I know it was less common genre then, but I think these games really helped influence it and make it a lot more accessible and just lead to a better game feel than Mario 64 did when Nintendo stuck to it with Sunshine. But anyways, guys, let's move on to the next game. Alright, so next up we have Bomberman 64. Now, I know a lot of people love this game because of the single-player adventure. It's one of the few Bomberman games with a single-player adventure that's actually worth playing. But for me, personally, I love the multiplayer in this game. I would play with me and my one buddy all the time back in the day. It's super fun, it gets really hectic, and now I know it might not be the best Bomberman multiplayer experience that you can get. I'd say a multi-tap with Bomberman World for the PS1 is probably that, but right out of the box, you have the option of 4 players for the N64, and let's be serious, guys. A game like Bomberman, it was made for the N64. It's great. It's great to see it in 3D and not just be standard 2D and actually work. Alright guys, next up we have Diddy Kong Racing. Now, I know a lot of people say that they like this game better than Mario Kart 64 or Crash Team Racing. Now, personally, out of that list, it's my least favorite, but it's still a great game with unique vehicles. You know, you can go with a car or a plane or a boat, which really does add like a uniqueness to it that you don't see on a lot of racing games. And I think that's what really drew people to it, and plus the adventure mode. I love the adventure mode in Crash Team Racing. It's the same with this game. It's fantastic. Really adds single player value to a genre that is mostly multiplayer focused, which is really cool. And overall, yeah, it's just a classic. I mean, you gotta have Diddy Kong Racing on there. Alright guys, next up we have Doom 64. Now, I know this isn't the most beloved Doom game in the Doom community, but for a only on console Doom game, I think it's really good. People complain about the game being too dark, but you just have to turn up the brightness on your TV. I know it's pain, but it's not that big of a deal, and I think that the environments are much more eerie than the original Dooms, and to some extent maybe even Doom 3, because Doom 3 kind of had some of the same issues as Doom 64. Maybe could have been inspired by it, but in that kind of way. But either way, I think that the levels in Doom 64 are cryptic, but in a good way that makes you anxious to see what's around the next corner. And the redesign for the enemies really are a little unsettling in comparison to what they used to be. They're kind of like clayey, but it looks really weird. And it runs fine. It has a multiplayer, but I never touched that personally. But yeah, I think it would be great on a N64 Classic. So next up, we have one of my personal favorites on the system, Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards. I'd say this is probably my second favorite Kirby game behind Kirby's Adventure on the NES. I have a lot of nostalgic memories with it. I actually played it like in the Giant Eagle Play Place way back in the day when I was really little, when my mom went shopping. And also, this is actually the first game that me and my buddy, his name's Cookie, or his nickname's Cookie, ever wanted to review. We were like, hey, let's get this review going. You know, let's try this YouTube thing out. And this was like way back when we were 13 or 14. And to give you an idea, I'm 21 now, so it's a long time ago. And he said, yeah, sure. So we like wrote up a script, and you know, it's probably trash. I don't know where it is right now. I'm sure I have a notebook of it somewhere. But we didn't have like the equipment and stuff like that to get it going. But we always said we'd come back to it. And I think that's what really inspired me to do this whole YouTube thing, was really just keep to that promise type of deal. And I will review this game more in depth one of these days, but I think some of the highlights of it are like combining powers, which is really good, and I think it was handled way better in this game than Kirby Star Allies. I don't like how you combine powers in that game. I was honestly very disappointed with that one. But you know, the graphics for the time, you know, it's a simple art style, so the graphics looked a little bit less jaggedy than other N64 games, and it actually probably holds up graphically the best at any N64 game that's in 3D at least. But yeah, it also has classic Kirby gameplay. It's not too hard. It is probably one of the harder Kirby games I've ever beaten, but that's still not saying much. It's still a pretty easy game. But either way, it's a great time, very enjoyable. Alright, next up we have The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. Now, I have beaten Ocarina of Time, but I've never beaten Majora's Mask. I do think that Ocarina of Time is a little bit overrated for today. Like, it hasn't aged perfectly, but for the time, I could definitely imagine it being as good as everyone says it is online. And I feel like that is a popular opinion now, to kind of knock Ocarina of Time down a peg or two. But I mean, it just hasn't aged super well. I haven't gotten super into Majora's Mask, but I did enjoy what I played. I think it would be very interesting to see how the time mechanic works and the different masks and stuff like that. And I love the idea of playing a actual, like, darker tone Zelda game. Not like Twilight Princess, where they kind of made it all bleak looking, but it looks like a Zelda game, but just has a darker tone, which really interests me. I'm definitely going to play that. I'll probably play the 3DS remake, because I have it. I just haven't gotten around to playing it. And as for Ocarina of Time, it is a really good game. It's still a fun Zelda game. It's still a Zelda game. But there's certain parts of it that haven't held up quite as well as we might want to think it has, like the water temple and, you know, like the owl and things like that. But you're still going on a Zelda adventure. You're still having a great time, getting lost in the world, and it is definitely a must for the N64 Mini. Next up, we have my personal favorite on the N64, Mario 64. And I know I gave all the praise to Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie, improving on what Mario 64 did so good. But there's just something about the game feel of Mario 64 that I adore. I love the way this game feels when you play it. The way Mario moves, he jumps, all the flips he can do. There's almost nothing about this game I don't like, except for that clock tower stage. I don't really like that stage very much, but other than that, I can look past that and say it is my favorite, or at least probably my favorite N64 game of all time. Maybe even my favorite 3D platformer game of all time. Maybe behind Spyro, I'd say. Spyro is probably the only one that really beats it out, the first 3 Spyro games. But it is fantastic. It's amazing to watch it speedrun. And even with it being an older game, it definitely has one of the biggest communities around it for retro games. And definitely the biggest community around it for the N64. So it is for sure a must, essential for the N64 Mini. Next up, we have Mario Kart 64. Maybe my personal favorite Mario Kart game. It's either that or 8 or Double Dash. I don't know. I always switch between those ones. Those are all amazingly fantastic games, and I have great memories with all of them, playing the multiplayer with my friends, and even family. Mario Kart's the kind of series that you can really get your family into. You know, my brother's game, but you know, my parents don't. But sometimes, you know, my dad would like to play Mario Kart. Sometimes he liked the racing games, so it's fun. And the battle modes in 64 and Double Dash and even Deluxe, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, are all great. They really change it up when you get a little bit tired of racing. Maybe you finish like a Grand Prix and then you go to the battle mode, and it's just a whole new set of rules to have a whole new kind of fun. And going over to people's houses, everybody has Mario Kart if they have a Nintendo system, pretty much. So you're gonna play some Mario Kart if you want to play some multiplayer games. So definitely have memories of going over to friends' houses and playing Mario Kart as well. And actually, whenever I did like Smash Bros tournament, I was like really young, like 13 or so. They actually had a Mario Kart one on the side, but I was much more interested in like Brawl. But that's another good memory for it, for Mario Kart in general. And I just think, obviously, you're gonna have Mario Kart on the N64 Mini, but I just love that game for sure. So the last Mario game we're gonna be talking about, Mario Party. A great Mario game, for sure. It's so hectic. You get so invested in this game that you really just scream at your friends at the end of it by the time you lose. It's kind of like Monopoly, where if you're not murdering each other at the end, then you just didn't have quite enough fun with it, you know what I mean? And the mini games are great. I haven't played the second or third one. This is why I'm putting the first one on. I hear that they're better, but I only have experience with the first one. I only have the first one to follow that rule of only using games that I have. But I think that the first one is just fine. It has the things where you have to go like that on the controller and hurt your hands. But other than that, I mean, the choruses are good. You know, most of the mini games are really fun, and they do definitely repeat some in later Mario Party games. But anyways, again, another must-have. You're gonna have at least one Mario Party on the NES or the N64 Mini, so why not the original? All right, next up we have Pokemon Snap. Now, Pokemon Snap, the reason why I put it on there, it's not my personal favorite game, but I think it's very unique in the fact that you can take pictures of Pokemon. That's a really cool gameplay mechanic, and I think that's something that a lot of people have like a nostalgic attachment to. And I think that people would love to see on the N64 Mini, and I would love to see it on the N64 Mini. Maybe just to get a chance to really go through it. I know it's a short game, it's only like an hour long or so. But either way, I think it would be a great addition. I don't know a ton about it, I just know you take pictures and upgrades you. Like, I've played it before, I'd never played it to completion. But I think it's pretty cool you have to get a certain grade to unlock the next level and not just like complete it. So it really encouraged you to like get better pictures, that type of thing, to really advance. But either way, I think it'd be pretty fun to have a very unique kind of game on the N64 Mini. Alright guys, next up we have Snowboarding Kids, a forgotten classic on the system. There is a sequel, but just like the Mario Party situation, I only have the first one. But either way, it is a really fun racing game, and it's definitely the kind of game that you pull out if you want something a little bit different than Mario 64 or Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing. You know, if you guys have played those games to death and you love racing games and you want something a little bit different but still kind of cartoony and not like trying to be realistic, super good racing game. Not really a focus on single player like Diddy Kong Racing has, but it does have really good multiplayer, so definitely give that one a go if you haven't tried it, and it'd be fantastic on the N64 Mini to add a little bit more variety. So next up, a true classic, Star Fox 64. You know, people love this game. This is like the last Star Fox game that people unanimously love. It'd be great if they made a game that was more along that line, but I do love Star Fox 64. You can beat it really quickly. There are a bunch of different routes to add to replayability, and you know, it's just really fun, satisfying spaceship shooting combat. I don't think any game has done it better as far as spaceship shooters go, like in the third dimension, where you're like in the cockpit almost kind of thing. But yeah, it's a really great game for sure. Next up we have a true classic, Super Smash Brothers. So this is the original. Quite hasn't aged super well. Might not be great for modern day audiences, but it is a very important time capsule kind of game where you look at the franchise of Super Smash Brothers, see where it is now, and then see where it came from. It really helps you appreciate how far we've really gone with technology. But either way, it's still a really fun game. It might not be very competitive, at least not for me personally. I don't really play it too much. I have played it with friends, and it's fun. It's still fun. But this is more the casual one, the one you play with like items off, kind of like the same kind of deal with Brawl. Even though it's still better than Brawl because there's no tripping and stuff like that. But anyways, you know, you just turn on the items and you have a good time. You're not taking it too seriously, type of thing. And I think that this game still satisfies what people like about Super Smash Brothers. It's just not quite as good as the other games, you know, that type of thing. Alright guys, last but not least, out of what I would put on the N64 Mini from my personal collection would be Yoshi's Story. Alright, now not a ton of people super love this game. It's actually pretty hard to beat because you have like a limited amount of Yoshis, and if you lose them all, then you lose the game. It's pretty hard for a Yoshi game, or what I would expect out of a Yoshi game for sure. But either way, it's still a really good game. I'd say it's a hidden like 2D platformer gem. You don't see a lot of 2D platformers on the N64, but this is definitely one of the better ones for sure, if not the best one. And I just think it controls really well. It feels kind of like you know, Yoshi's Island almost, with a little bit few differences. But it's still a Yoshi game. It's still fun. Still has some unique challenges. The only thing I don't really like about it is that instead of like getting to a goal like most Mario games, you have to eat fruit, and once you get a certain amount of fruit, you're done with the level. It's interesting to see, but I just don't think it's super well executed. I think that they could do it better in a different game. Either way, I still think it's a really good game, and you should definitely give it a shot. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of Millennials Point of View. And if you really liked what you see and you want to see where this channel goes in the future, I will definitely upload much more in the future. Definitely consider subscribing, and also leave a like, leave a comment, maybe leave what you think you would put out of your personal collection for the N64 on the N64 Mini. Either way guys, I really hope you enjoyed, and I really hope to see you guys again soon.